Yo, hey everyone, Andrew here, bringing you another video. And today we're going to be kicking off Pokemon Week. What is Pokemon Week, you ask? Well, Pokemon Week is going to be a 5-video series where I'm going to take a look at each generation in Pokemon. There being 5 generations. I'm going to give you my opinions on that generation, its games, the Pokemon that come out of that generation, and on a whole, how does it stack up to the other ones. Now, one small note is, although I played every single Pokemon game in Generation, there are a few games that I have missing due to losing them or loaning out to friends and just never got back. These would be Silver, Gold, Crystal, Sapphire, and Platinum. I don't know where they've gone. Well, I know where a few of them have gone, but on the whole, I don't have those to show you. But the rest I have to show you. Not like you really need to see the cartridges and all that. So with that said, let's jump into the first generation. Generation 1 of Pokemon. Generation 1 is where it all started for Pokemon. In the United States, we had 3 versions. Pokemon Red, Pokemon Blue, and Pokemon Yellow. In Japan, they had Pokemon Green instead of Pokemon Blue. Now, how do you really talk about Generation 1, the first generation, without actually talking about the basic concept of Pokemon? Because, see, with all the other generations, I can just talk about what those generations added and how they're different from the previous ones. But Generation 1 is where it all started. And I'm sure all of you know the basic concept of Pokemon. The basic concept is that you're a 10-year-old boy who apparently doesn't have to go to school at all and your education is complete and gets hundreds of dollars from doing miscellaneous jobs. You go around and you find little creatures called Pokemon. You battle them, capture them, and use them in Pokemon battles. You then fight other trainers, gym leaders, and eventually the Elite Four and the Pokemon League champion, trying to collect as many Pokemon as you can while at the same time defeating Team Rocket. The Pokemon games for Generation 1 are set in the Kanto region with the original 150. And that's the basic concept for Generation 1. Let's actually talk about the games themselves. Start things off with Pokemon. Well, the Pokemon from Kanto, I believe, are my favorite Pokemon. I like the designs of them. They're very simplistic, but at the same time unique compared to the other Pokemon. You find in later generations that some Pokemon go over the top in how they look, or just over the top in concept. But something as basic as, say, Charizard, who is a dragon Pokemon. Well, it's not actually a dragon type, but it's a fire-flying, but it's pretty much a dragon. It's a very simplistic concept, but it's really a good one. Like Blastoise, who is a turtle. It is a very simplistic concept for the Pokemon, but a good one. Ponyta is a horse. I mean, what more do you need to know? But they are great looking Pokemon and good designs. In addition to that, I believe Generation 1 had some of the best balance when it came out to typing. Some typing were better than the other ones or had more to them, but for the most part you got a little bit of everything. You had a good selection of fire type, water type, electric type, bug type, so on and so forth to choose from to make your Pokemon team. You'll find in later generations certain types get favored over other ones. Although through all the generations, with probably the exception of 5th, water type is probably the most common type of them all, next to normal. Although someone's probably going to debate me on that and say that I'm wrong. Anyways, the Pokemon on a whole, I believe, are the best of the Pokemon. A lot of my favorites are here, and whenever I make up a Pokemon team in any generation, I try to take some Kanto Pokemon because, well, I just love them. They look good. Again, this is my personal opinion, and when it comes down to the actual Pokemon designs, art, and look of them, that's all opinionated. But when it actually comes down to the Pokemon themselves, outside of Legendaries, the original Pokemon, they had pretty good balance and some good Pokemon to select from. There were only a few Pokemon that really weren't good. But a lot of the Pokemon that you can find in these generations, this generation in particular, are good Pokemon that you can still use on a team. So Generation 1's Pokemon, I love them. They look good. They're great. On to the basic story and the gameplay itself. Well, the gameplay itself is very basic, and although the gameplay has changed throughout the years, you can go back to this and still enjoy it for what it was, because although it did change, not much has changed. For example, there's double battles, or how you can hold items or special abilities on Pokemon, but on the whole, it's turn-based combat where you select a move and you exchange attacks. It's a very simple, basic form of gameplay, but it's a gameplay that's enjoyable. See, the one problem with doing Generation 1 with gameplay is it's just going to be dwarfed by all the other generations that just add more to the gameplay. So I'm just going to leave the gameplay as good. Overall look. Well, this came out in, I believe, 1996? So the graphics are going to be so-so. The designs of the Pokemon look good, but some Pokemon don't always translate over in looking good. I mean, there's some Pokemon designs like Venusaur's or Lapras or Charizard's, which I like, but then there's some that just don't look good at all. Mewtwo didn't look good at all. I mean, I could list off quite a few of them, not going to bother with it, but there's some designs that didn't look good. And again, this is out when the Game Boy was kind of just it was there. You could arguably say that the Pokemon franchise has made Game Boy as good as it is, but I mean, the graphics are only going to be so good at this point in time. When it comes down to the overall feel of Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow, well, Pokemon Red and Blue are pretty much the same game with the exception of a few trade-offs with Pokemon. For example, in Red you get Arbok and, well, Ekans and Arbok, and in Blue you get Sandshrew and Sandslash. There's a few trade-offs and you're going to have to trade between the two to get them all. But for the most part, they're pretty much the same game. Pokemon Yellow is slightly different, seeing that you don't get to choose one of the three starters, Bulbasaur, Squirtle, or Charmander. Instead, you're forced to take Pikachu. And your rival has Eevee, and its evolutions vary depending on how you fight him, or how many times you lose or win versus him. Eventually, you get the other starters along the way, but you have to start off with Pikachu. There are, I believe, a few Pokemon that you have to trade over between the two previous versions. And in addition to that, the look of the field, the look of the game, and the Pokemon look different. Charizard's design is different. Butterfree looks different. This was more akin to trying to relate to the Pokemon anime that was going on at the time. Seeing that you can fight Jesse and James in the game. On the whole, Pokemon Yellow, although good and full of content, I actually think it's probably the weakest out of the games. And Pokemon Red and Blue are the ones I like the most with Pokemon Red. On the whole, with Generation 1, well, the big problem with reviewing Generation 1 is it's just a starter Pokemon. It will be outdated when compared to all the other Pokemon games, and that's really the only problem with it. It's outdated. You'll get nostalgia from it. On a whole, it's a good game, especially for the time it was fantastic, but it's just outdated from all the other series. With that said, I still hold a high place in my heart for Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow. They aren't my favorite Pokemon games, but they're definitely ones I played the most, and they're the ones that I've grown up to. So they're ones that have deep in my heart a nice little special place. But like I said, Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow, they're always going to be outdated by the other versions. So with that said, I'm going to end this review here. This is Andrew saying, peace out for now.